I had no cake on my birthday, Mama. The little girl didn't cry when she said it. She didn't complain. She said it softly, like she was stating a simple fact, the way children do when they don't yet know that some truths can break hearts. Maria froze. They were standing inside a small neighborhood bakery, the kind that smelled like warm bread and sugar but rarely saw customers like them. Maria held Lily's tiny hand tightly, afraid that if she let go, her own tears might fall. "It's okay," Lily added quickly, tugging at her mother's sleeve. "I know cakes are expensive." Maria swallowed hard. Today was supposed to be different. Today was Lily's 6th birthday. And yet, here they were, counting coins in the palm of Maria's hand. Coins meant for bread, not celebration. "I'll get the small roll," Maria told the baker, her voice trembling. Just the plain one." Lily stood on her tiptoes, peeking at the colorful cakes behind the glass. Pink frosting, chocolate layers, tiny sugar flowers, candles shaped like stars. She smiled anyway. "It's okay, Mama," she repeated. "We can pretend." Behind them, a man stood quietly, holding a cup of untouched coffee. Daniel Carter. No one in the bakery recognized him. There were no bodyguards, no designer suit. Just a tall, well-dressed man with tired eyes and a face that carried a kind of loneliness money could never hide. He hadn't meant to listen, but the words reached him anyway. "I had no cake on my birthday." Something inside his chest tightened. Daniel had celebrated birthdays in mansions, on yachts, in rooms filled with people who clapped and smiled, and yet he couldn't remember the last time he felt anything at all. His birthdays were loud, expensive, and empty. The little girl's voice followed him like an echo. Maria handed over the coins. The baker hesitated, glancing at the cakes, then back at the child. "Happy birthday," the baker said softly, sliding the bread across the counter. Lily beamed as if she'd just received the greatest gift in the world. "Thank you," she said brightly. "This is perfect." That was the moment Daniel looked at her properly. Her dress was clean but worn. Her shoes were a size too big. Her hair was tied with a ribbon that had been reused many times. And yet her smile, it was fearless, hopeful, too big for a world that had already taught her to expect less. As Maria turned to leave, Lily whispered, not knowing how loud her honesty was, "Next year, maybe we'll have a cake." Maria closed her eyes. Daniel set his coffee down. "Excuse me," he said gently. Maria turned, startled. She instinctively pulled Lily closer. "Yes?" she asked, cautious. Daniel knelt so he was eye level with Lily. "Happy birthday," he said, his voice unusually soft. "How old are you today?" Lily held up 6 fingers proudly. 6. "That's a very important age," Daniel smiled. "Do you know why?" Lily shook her head. "Because 6-year-olds are brave," he said. "And very kind." Lily thought for a moment, then nodded seriously. "I try to be." Maria felt something shift in her chest. Strangers didn't usually stop. They didn't usually kneel. They didn't usually look at her child like she mattered. Daniel stood and looked at Maria. "May I do something for her?" he asked carefully. Maria's first instinct was to refuse. Pride and fear rose together. "You don't have to." "I know," Daniel said. "But I want to." There was no pity in his eyes. Just sincerity. Maria hesitated. Lily looked up at her, eyes wide but trusting. "It's okay, Mama," Lily whispered. "He looks nice." Daniel smiled again, but this time it didn't reach his eyes. Because something inside him had already cracked. "Wait here," he said. Before Maria could respond, Daniel turned back to the counter. The baker watched as Daniel pointed, not to the small cakes, not to the cheap ones, but to the biggest cake in the display. White frosting. Pink roses. 6 candles. "I'll take that one," Daniel said. Maria's breath caught. "Sir, that's too much." Daniel shook his head gently. "Please." The bakery fell silent. Lily's eyes widened in disbelief. Is that for me?" Daniel turned, holding the cake box like it was something precious. "Yes," he said. "It's for you." For a moment, Lily didn't move. She looked at the cake, then at her mother, then back at Daniel. Slowly, she smiled, the kind of smile that doesn't just light up a room, but stays with you forever. "I've never had one before," she said softly. Daniel swallowed. Neither had he, not like this. The baker placed the candles on top. Someone began to sing. Others joined in. "Happy birthday to you." Lily closed her eyes before blowing out the candles. Daniel watched her, unaware that his own eyes were wet. And in that small bakery, with a cake and a child who expected nothing, a lonely billionaire felt something he hadn't felt in decades. Not power. Not success. But home. Lily stared at the cake as if it might disappear if she blinked. The candles were still smoking from her wish, thin curls of white floating up toward the bakery's low ceiling. The room smelled like sugar and vanilla and something else. Something warm that didn't come from the oven. "Did I do it right?" Lily asked, looking up at Daniel. "I wished really hard." Daniel smiled, a real one this time. "I think you did it perfectly." Maria stood frozen beside her daughter, one hand pressed to her mouth. She had spent years learning how to survive disappointment, how to smile politely, how to say thank you and move on, but this kindness was too sudden, too big. It made her chest ache. "You didn't have to do this," she said quietly. Daniel met her eyes. "I know. That's why I wanted to." The baker cut the first slice carefully, as if this cake were more than dessert. When he handed it to Daniel, Daniel didn't take a bite. Instead, he turned and held the plate out to Lily. "You should have the first piece," he said. Lily shook her head firmly. "Birthday rule," she explained. "You share first." She took the fork, scooped a small bite, and held it up toward Daniel's mouth. "Here." The bakery went silent again. Daniel hesitated. No one had ever fed him cake before. Not like this. Not without cameras or contracts or expectations. Just a child, standing on tiptoes, offering him joy. He leaned down and took the bite. It was sweet. Too sweet. And somehow it burned. "That's really good," he said, his voice rough. Lily giggled. "Told you." They sat at the small corner table. Lily swung her legs, humming to herself while she ate. Maria watched Daniel closely. How he listened, how he asked Lily about school, her favorite color, whether she liked drawing or singing. He didn't check his phone once. "So what did you do today before the bakery?" Daniel asked Lily. "I helped Mama," Lily said proudly. "I carried the laundry basket. It was heavy." Maria smiled sadly. "She insists." "That's because Mama gets tired," Lily said matter-of-factly. "When I grow up, I'm going to buy her a big chair so she can rest." Daniel looked at Maria. "She's wise." Maria laughed softly, tears threatening again. "She's 6. When the cake was finished and the candles cleaned away, Daniel stood. For a moment, Maria thought this was where the story ended. The stranger would smile, wave, and disappear back into a world that didn't include them. Instead, he cleared his throat. "Would you like to go to the park?" he asked Lily. "There's one nearby. With swings." Lily looked at her mother, eyes hopeful but cautious. "Can we?" Maria hesitated. Every instinct told her to protect her child, to keep her world small and safe. But something about Daniel, his patience, his gentleness, quieted that fear. "All right," she said slowly. "For a little while." The park was modest. Old swings. A chipped slide. But Lily ran toward it like it was a palace. Daniel sat on a bench while Maria watched Lily soar back and forth, her laughter carrying through the air. "She doesn't laugh like that often," Maria admitted. Daniel nodded. "Neither do I." They sat in silence for a moment. "I lost my parents when I was young," Daniel said suddenly. "I had everything. Except people." Maria didn't respond right away. She understood that kind of loneliness, the kind that didn't show on the outside. "I lost my husband," she said softly. "And after that, everything became about surviving." Daniel watched Lily leap from the swing. She's doing more than surviving. As the sun dipped lower, Daniel walked them home. When they reached the building, Lily tugged his sleeve. "Will you come again?" she asked. Daniel knelt. "If that's okay with your mom." Maria searched her heart, then nodded. "You're welcome to visit." He stood, suddenly unsure. "I don't want to intrude." Lily wrapped her arms around his leg. "You're not." Something broke open then, quietly, completely. "I'll come by tomorrow," Daniel said. That night, Daniel returned to his mansion alone. The house was spotless. Silent. He sat at the long dining table and stared at the empty chairs. For the first time, the quiet felt wrong. Across town, Lily fell asleep clutching a paper crown from the bakery. Maria watched her chest rise and fall, grateful and afraid all at once. "Thank you," she whispered to the empty room. The next morning, Daniel arrived with storybooks. The next week with crayons. He helped Lily with homework, listened to her read aloud, celebrated small victories. One evening, Lily looked up from her drawing. "Uncle Daniel?" she asked shyly. "Yes. Do you get lonely?" Daniel paused. "I did." She smiled. "You don't have to now." He realized then that the cake hadn't changed anything by itself. It was what came after. The choice to stay. The choice to care. The choice to become family. The first thing Daniel noticed was that his house no longer sounded empty. For years, silence had followed him everywhere. It echoed in hallways, rested on furniture, and waited for him every night. Now, small sounds filled the air. Laughter. Footsteps. A child humming off-key. The change was so gentle that it surprised him when he realized it had already happened. "Uncle Daniel," Lily called, running through the living room with a drawing in her hands. "Look, I made us." Daniel knelt down as she held up a picture of 3 stick figures holding hands. One was tall. One was small. One had long hair. "That's us," Lily said proudly. Daniel felt something warm settle in his chest. "I think you drew us perfectly." Maria watched from the doorway, wiping her hands on a towel. She still felt like a guest, even after weeks of visits. Big houses had always made her nervous. They reminded her of distance and difference. But this one felt different now. "Lunch is ready," she said softly. They sat together at the smaller table, not the long formal one. Lily insisted on sitting between them. Daniel noticed how naturally it felt, as if the space had been waiting for them all along. After lunch, Lily spread her schoolbooks across the table. "I have reading today," she announced. Daniel leaned closer. "Show me." She read slowly, sounding out each word, her finger tracing the lines. When she finished the page, she looked up nervously. "Did I do okay?" Daniel clapped quietly. "You did amazing." Her smile stretched wide. Maria watched, her eyes shining. For the first time in years, she felt relief instead of fear when thinking about tomorrow. Later that afternoon, Lily wandered into Daniel's study. She looked at the tall shelves filled with books and then at the empty walls. "Why don't you have pictures?" she asked. Daniel stopped walking. He followed her gaze and realized she was right. There were none. "I never had anyone to put in them," he said. Lily ran out and returned with a small photo from her backpack. It was the picture taken on her birthday, cake frosting on her nose, Maria laughing beside her. "You can have this," Lily said. "Families have pictures." Daniel held it carefully like it might break. That evening, he placed it in a frame and set it on his desk. Days turned into weeks. Daniel helped Maria find steady work through his foundation, treating her with respect instead of pity. Lily started school nearby. On her first day, Daniel walked her to the gate and knelt to fix her backpack. "I'll be here when you come out," he promised. He was. Every single day. At school events, Daniel clapped louder than anyone else. Lily searched the crowd and waved when she saw him. Maria stood beside him, slowly learning that this life was real. One evening, Lily curled up next to Daniel on the couch as he read a story. "Uncle Daniel," she asked quietly, "were you lonely before us?" Daniel closed the book. Yes. She hugged his arm. You don't have to be anymore. Maria looked away, tears slipping down her face. Weeks later, Daniel returned home late one evening. The house was dark. For a brief moment, the old silence returned, sharp and familiar. Then the lights turned on. Surprise! Lily stood on a chair beside a small homemade cake. The frosting was uneven. The candles didn't match. Maria laughed nervously. She made it herself. Lily handed Daniel a card written in careful letters. Now you never have birthdays alone. Daniel closed his eyes. They sat together at the table, sharing the simple cake. No luxury. No titles. Just warmth and laughter. Daniel looked at them and understood something clear and true. The cake had started it. Kindness had carried it forward. Love had made them a family. Sometimes a child doesn't ask for much. Not toys. Not money. Just a cake. And someone to listen. That little girl's birthday wish didn't just change her day. It changed a lonely man's life forever. Because family isn't about blood or wealth. It's about showing up and choosing love.